I was talking to my wife yesterday about an atheist or professing atheist family member, and how we had some discussions, and how oftentimes one gets the impression that atheists are like children in temperament and emotions, sort of like children that they pick and choose the things that they think will give them the most credit or eyes or something. And in some people's minds, the idea of being an atheist is like brave or risky or something like that. And so they pick it for this reason. In their minds, they're being tough. They're being different from all the others. While all the other children are playing safely by the rules, they think that they're being the risk takers. And that's certainly not true. They're actually the ones not willing to step out. In fact, that's actually playing it safe. There's a smallness of mind and wonder, a fear of being wrong that paralyzes them and that cripples them, and it strangles them. It chokes their spirit. But they've been taught that. But nevertheless, back to my atheistic relative, I was thinking about it, and I forget in detail the arguments that were made back and forth, but he presented to me, we know the atheist arguments are nothing new or original. They all just repeat themselves and each other. Especially nowadays, there are no real interesting or even independent thinkers in that regard. And that's what, gives me that child schoolyard impression. But, so anyway, this guy spoke, this relative, and I remember telling him something along the lines of, it's easy to be an atheist in a Christian environment or a culture so thoroughly influenced by Christianity, because it's not wolf eats wolf or survival of the fittest. We're all very kind and charitable and polite, and so that's not an atheistic morale. That is a Christian. And in that regard, if you want evidence or proof of that, just go look at at history or even contemporary events. All the nations that are not Christian or have not been influenced by Christianity of the Bible, they're much more cruel, cold, calculated. They're usually communists or something like that, and they have no feeling and no regard. So the argument that somehow atheism can be as moral as Christianity is false. Those are people who are ignorant of history and are not informed of what the world was like before Christianity. Before Christianity, we had a world of imperialism, a world of slavery, a world of gladiator games, a world of cruelty, a world of selfish ambition at the expense of others. We had a world of cruel tortures. We had a world of endless wars and colonizations. We had a world where people used to expose their babies run up on each other and slaughter each other and chop pieces of their bodies off with swords and other weapons, beat each other to death. They used to expose their babies at birth, particularly the girls more often, and just leave them out in the wilderness to dehydrate and die or be eaten by wild animals. So this was not a compassionate, tender-hearted civilization, a world before Christ. Don't think that what we're living in now is the norm. It's not. It's the exception. But it has become our norm. But it didn't come by secularism. And it didn't come by Roman and Greek civilization, because all the things that I mentioned are actually taken from Roman and Greek so-called civilization. Just having order in roads alone doesn't create kind-heartedness. That's something different. And you have to give credit where credit is due. So, my atheist proponents, you wouldn't want to live in an atheistic world. You're able to talk about that while you sit on a foundation of a glorious tree of civilization that was sprung forth from Jesus Christ, from the rod of Jesse. You can look that up and see what I mean. The rod of Jesse. And so that's a whole other way of arguing against atheists that I see people not taking. Instead, they try to take it head on and just create a collision of intellect, whereas I think that we need to appeal to the heart and pull the heartstrings of man, because the man is the same in kind. Another atheistic absurdity is relativism, due to the fact that atheism denies absolute morality, but rather conventionalism, what's convenient, expediency, and utilitarianism. So all those things, even if atheists decided to be kind, it would be purely selfish, and it would be purely because that's convenient, that's utilitarian, or it's expedient for the so-called good. And how is the good defined? The good is defined as bare biological survival. And so occasionally those things, yes, will cross roads and will meet with compassion or something that looks like compassion, but from totally different motives. So it's not the same. It's not done because it is right, regardless of whether it is beneficial to me, regardless of whether it is approved and accepted by men or by law or the majority. An evolutionist can't stand against the majority, because if a majority wants to go a certain way according to biological so-called determinism and the will of the majority, then evolutionists couldn't stand for what is right against the herd. That would be contrary to the tenets and ideas and laws of evolution. So you see, it breaks down, because man is more than biological needs, more than just eating and drinking, sleeping and pissing. A man has another element. We're not meant to be so degraded. That's why in atheism, you can't make a strong moral argument or a convincing argument that a man shouldn't be a drug addict, that a man shouldn't use drugs, a man shouldn't degrade and waste his life. Because it's only the Bible that gives man that elevated image of himself, that he is made in the image of God. And it is true. But let me stop there. We'll save these things for another day.